Chapter 28, Steering Systems and Integral Steering Gears, Day 2, Video 2, Recirculating Ball Power Assist. So I'm going to get a little bit more into depth here on just the power assist components here. So what we've got here is this is the rotary valve here, and then so this is the valve the very sensitive valve that directs the pressure from the center port here to either the upper or the lower passage in this rotary valve. The other key component to that is this torsion rod right here. So we can see the rod at each end has a little bit larger diameter, and then it's neck down in the center. And just like any torsion rod, it's meant to twist. So the more resistance to turning, the more that this rod will twist. Okay, so if we look at the rotary valve here at the top is where the spline is matched into the steering rod that comes up to the steering wheel, comes in here, and then through the rotary valve. So the only connection between this shaft here and then the valve itself is this torsion rod right through the center. So if we look here at the top, there is you can see a pin or a hole here where a pin drives through that attaches the top of that rod to the shaft up here. And then we can see the end of that torsion rod shaft right here at the end of the rotary valve. And it's got another pin that holds that together. So the only thing that keeps these two, the rotary valve itself and the shaft, attached is that torsion rod. So with the resistance to turning, the more resistance to turning there is, okay, the harder it is for this truck to turn, the more steering effort the driver will give, right? And the more that this shaft will deflect, and the more the internal passages open up and allow more pressure and more flow to flow through to either the upper or the lower passage here. Touching on some of the the same aspects. Hydraulic fluid, we use a high pressure fluid. A lot of cases they will use ATF. One of the key things that we need to keep in mind is the major cause of failure of the power assist system is from heat. Overcycling the power steering, the fluid gets hot and it starts to break down, and then it loses the lubrication properties that are in the oil. So again, the major component or the major failure for power steering systems deals with the heat. Pressure line and a return line. One of the things here, when we've got the steering wheels in the neutral position, we're putting very little pressure and flow through the power steering into the steering gear, so low demand for that pressure, and so we just cycle a little bit of oil through it to keep things cooled. We're going to use that oil passing through the steering gear to help cool it. That hydraulic pressure, as it goes through the hoses and stuff internally, sends that pressure to one side of that the power steering piston internally, like I showed in the earlier diagram, or if we've got a rack and pinion, to one side of the piston or the other there. And then again, the fluid that we use, there may be a specific power steering fluid, or it may call for automatic transmission fluid. High pressure lines, low pressure line, or the return line, make sure they're the proper pressure ratings. Usually 2300, 2600 psi is the highest rated pressure that you might see. And then on the return line, it's a low pressure, 150 psi on that. The damage that we would look for in that is any kind of signs for leaking or abrasions or something like that that would lead to the hose failing. So this is the rotary valve. I talked about the pressure is available all the time to this center channel, and then depending on which way we're turning the steering wheel and at how much resistance to the turning, that passage will open up to either the upper or the lower passage here, or the port here on the rotary valve, and allow that pressurized oil to flow through and then transfer to this lower channel. The pressurized oil would move to the appropriate side of the piston, and then this side of that valve would be opened up to the low pressure side, allowing that return back to the reservoir. They'll run with a little bit of pressure, say like the neutral position. You're driving down the road and we're not turning right, we're not turning left. It'll allow a little bit of slight pressure to come through and travel to both sides of that piston. Right, that way we've got pressure available there. If we need to make a quick turn to the right or quick turn to the left, there's pressure already available on either side of the piston. And then all it's doing is opening up one port to the return line, and we've got a fast response from our power steering. The other advantage to that is with pressure on both sides of that piston inside the steering gear, if we hit bumps or ruts or anything in the road and it puts some movement back into the steering system, we've got kind of a built-in cushion there with that pressure so that it's not going to try and turn that steering wheel out of the driver's hands.